You are listening to another AlwaysMoto production. The AlwaysMoto podcast with your host, David Hogan. We talk moto events from around the world. All the injuries, all the training ins and outs, the bikes, parts and gear inspections. The results, we interview your favourite riders. It's the AlwaysMoto podcast. We occasionally have some coarse language and the odd stuff up along the way. If you don't like it or you don't agree with us, turn it off right now.
I'd like to remind you that he is not a doctor.
That's right, Moto fans. This is episode 151 of the AlwaysMoto podcast, proudly brought to you by TechnicMotorsport.com. I'm your host, David Hogan, the physiotherapist who knows the injuries and fitness needs of our sport of motocross and supercross, and we go through everything and anything moto here on the show because everything is Always Moto here on the AlwaysMoto network. This week's show, it's one of our inspection shows, but it's about a special release. That's right. It's time to talk new bikes, and it's Stark Future. They have released their Stark Varg 1.2. The next edition of their electric motocross bike, we will review the specs of this new bike, and we're also going to have Anton Wass, the CEO and co-founder of Stark Future, on this very show. So that's going to be a really awesome episode here for all you electric bike lovers out there and all those ones who are thinking about getting an electric bike. This is going to be the show for you. Now, what do all these factory teams out there in our sport, from Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Yamaha, even Stark, what do they have in common? They use KYB or Showa suspension, and they service them with genuine parts. Now, KYB and Showa, they have an Australian distributor, and that's Technic Motorsport in Sydney. Now, why would you use non-genuine seals, wipers, bushes, and other consumables when genuine parts are available, perform better, and are usually only a day away? TechnicMotorsport.com is the place to go to for your genuine KYB and Showa parts, from seals to fork tubes to internal individual components and A-kit suspension sets for KYB and Showa. Technic has it, and they have KYB factory sets for Stark as well. So check it out. Use the Find My Bike tool to see the compatible parts, and there's always new parts being added daily. So check those out. And if you're not in Australia, that's okay. Technic Motorsport has a currency converter and a shipping calculator on their site, and they ship daily with DHL to most countries. So check out TechnicMotorsport.com for all your suspension needs. Now, don't forget the other show sponsors here: Pivot Pegs, Competitive Edge Performance, Tech 167, 3D Printing. They all support the show, and you hear about them throughout different shows here on the network. As always, we do need your support direct of the show. We have our AlwaysMoto t-shirts available. They are $25 plus postage and handling. Email info@alwaysmoto.com. Put t-shirt order in that subject line, and we'll get in touch about size and payment via PayPal, and we'll get that out to you ASAP. Now, speaking of PayPal, maybe you don't want a t-shirt, but you want to support the show. That's awesome. Send us a donation directly to our AlwaysMoto PayPal account. It helps us continue to keep the show on the road. Now, to find all our supporters, the discount codes that we have available for them as well, and find the links in the show notes or in our bio on our social pages. All right, enough with this intro talk. Let's get into this show about the Stark Varg 1.2 motocross bike.
Hi there, my name is Eldon Baker, and I'm from the Baker's Factory, and you're listening to AlwaysMoto.
All right, guys and girls, let's get into this show. It's about that time of the year again where you start seeing all these new bike models for the 2026 lineups that will be coming out here very, very soon. Some of them have already dropped, but one that I was not expecting to see a new model from, and I don't know why I hadn't thought of it, didn't really, think that far ahead. I probably should have. It makes sense where it's popping out at. But that was Stark Future. I didn't expect to see a new model from them. Obviously, we had at the end of last year, beginning of this year, the release around the Stark Varg EX, which was the road-going version of the Stark Varg. And obviously that Stark Varg motocross bike has been out for a bit over 2 years now. I think it was around 3 years ago that we were there over in Spain for that launch. And that was an awesome time. And obviously that bike blew us away at that point in time. But as in motocross, things don't tend to stay the same for too long. They tend to get updated, even if it's only grips and graphics for some models. But generally speaking, the bikes are progressing and they're changing. They're changing frames. They're changing, suspension settings. They're They're getting updates in all sorts of wonderful ways that make our riding experience even more enjoyable. And for Stark Future, that's exactly what they've done here. Now, it was my surprise when Benjamin Cobb, the PR, media, marketing, and communications manager there at Stark Future, got in touch, and he had another one of those meeting invites that's labeled sort of top secret. It's kind of fun when Ben gets in touch because you always know there's something cool coming out when he does. And look, it was all embargoed to a certain date. Obviously, you're listening to this now, so you're hearing this after the embargo date, and that was August 5th, 2025. And they do that so that all the media can basically drop this at the one point across the world, and they get that big, media uptake, and it increases the attention. But then obviously it hits all the algorithms and tries to send more of that stuff out because it's happened all at once, all around the world. It's quite a nice little marketing ploy that they try and put out there from Stark Future, and it works pretty well. So yeah, look, that's what they're doing. You'll be seeing a lot of it. If you haven't already, you'll be seeing heaps of it on your socials, and probably whenever you search on any of your favorite moto media sites, there'll probably be a story on the new bike. And that's just how they're working it in. But the product is the Stark Varg 1.2, they're calling it. It's the new motocross model. So basically, Stark Varg was a 1. This is now a 1.2. It's the second edition of the Varg motocross bike. It's been a bit over 2 years, like we said, that the Varg MX has been out in the wild, and keeping with that tradition of model development in the industry, it's time for a new one. So Stark Future has updated it, and this is it. It's available pretty much immediately from the moment you're hearing this, or if you're reading it elsewhere. It's available now for our Australian listeners. It's going to be about a 2 to 3 week wait from the point of that August 5th release. So depending on when you're listening to this, if it's on the 5th, it's about 2 or 3 weeks away. That they will actually be available on the floor at your local Stark Varg dealer, which is awesome. For other places like the US, they're pretty much available now, from what I understood from that meeting with Ben. So that's pretty awesome. But as per always, you can order it direct from the Stark Future website. So if you're an Australian, you can pre-order it, pick out your local dealer for it to be delivered to, and you can pick it up from there once you get a notification to say, hey, it's here, it's ready to go. You'll be able to pick it up straight away. So that is a nice little feature there. And obviously their website's a nice ordering process as well, which we'll talk about as well. But it allows you to pick those custom options that you can do with Stark Varg, from suspension being the spring ratings of soft, medium or hard, the different tires, you've got all the different protection options, you've got the titanium bolt kits that you can pick from. There's a few options that they have available through their site when you're ordering, so you actually feel like you're getting a bike specifically for you, which is a really nice little feature that they have there. Now the Varg itself and Stark Future themselves, they remain a bit of an interesting topic in our sport because they are so different. That electric power unit that they have and how they're going about their processes is just different. And for many, it's still a bit unsure about what it is and what it's capable of, which is fair to do. It's a new thing. Not everyone's been able to see one, touch one, ride one. I was one of the lucky ones to get to do that early in the process. And the best way to sort of understand that bike and what it's about is truly find somebody who has one and get on one, and you'll realize very quickly how good it actually is and how easy it is to ride. The power being so instant, the adjustability of that power, how that power makes the bike feel super light when you're out riding it, the control you have over the bike because there's no gears, there's no clutch. You're able to basically just embrace the ride. You're able to lock in. You're not worried about what gear I'm in. Have I got to fan the clutch to keep the motor going? None of that stuff is a problem. You turn the throttle, you're moving. You turn it off, depending on whether you've got, decompression settings put into it, so it slows it down like a 4-stroke would, or whether you've got it free on that aspect for the motor, it'll roll into a corner smoothly. You can adjust all that from their Arkenstone phone, which is their dashboard on the bike. All these things make the ride just so much more enjoyable because you're not worrying about half as much stuff. So that side of things is brilliant. Now, what about the specs for this new bike? What's different? Well, let's take you through some of that stuff. I've got the press release open here and we're going to work our way through it. So we try and cover as much of this stuff because I know you want to hear all those details as you can to work out whether you should be upgrading, updating, or just getting in on that electric side of things. And look, for many of you, it's an expense, but it's worth it if you can go ahead and do it. It'll be a very exciting bike for you. Now, let's start off with that. Obviously, they're introducing the new 1.2. It's got a whole new powertrain, chassis design, software features, and they're continuing to push the boundaries of what's possible with that premium electric motorcycle industry. Now, adjustable power. It's going to have that 60 and 80 horsepower options that you can buy from scratch, but obviously it's fully adjustable. And it outperforms a traditional 450 motocross bike. Now, the adjustment is what sets it apart, and it's able to be adjusted from 10 horsepower all the way up to 80 horsepower in real time with basically just the touches of the screen on that dashboard on that Arkenstone phone. Now, speaking of that Arkenstone phone, it's not just a display on the dashboard. It's actually a military-grade smartphone, so you can actually use that as your phone, everyday phone. You can just clip it into the bike when it's time to ride. It's up to you what you do there, but it is a fully functioning military-grade smartphone. It's fully integrated and field-tested. It's Android power unit, and it's all wireless, except when it obviously connects into the bike. It's plugged in, essentially. It's all waterproof, all that sort of stuff, so no worries about that. It also lets you fine-tune. It can switch maps on the fly, and now they've actually partnered with a GPS company, and they're letting you do not only navigation with it, but you can do, because of the GPS functioning, like what many people will do on like a Polar watch or a Garmin's watch. They will use their heart rate and GPS track, and they will do automatic laps based off a GPS position. This new feature that they've partnered with this GPS company allows you to do not only lap times, but you can do segment times and show them on the screen as you go through each segment. Compare your last segment and your best segment as you're riding on the fly. Now, there's a whole lot of data that's going to be showing up on this dashboard, so don't get caught reading your phone while you're trying to ride for too long, because you will pretty much eat crap at that point. Much like you shouldn't be texting and driving. It's going to be a bit this way here on the dashboard, because there's so much information that's going to be available to you based on what they've now done with this Arkenstone phone and this GPS partnership. So that side of things is awesome. So if you're one of those guys that like to ride a particular track and know your time and try to beat your time, and you want to see where you're losing time and whatnot, this is going to replace like the Lit Pros. They're going to replace the Lit Pros essentially with this, and they're not going to have to you're not going to have to wait until you get back to the pits and download it and look at it on your phone or on your laptop. It's going to be available on that phone, on the dashboard as you are riding. So you're going to be able to tell whether your lapse times are improving or not based on a segment that you've set up, and you're going to be able to set that up all up very easily as you ride around. You're going to be able to set the points that you want it to be as your segments, and away you go. So that is a really, really cool feature that's going to add to this bike. So basically they're going to, the bike's a little bit more expensive than a standard bike, but you're getting a whole bunch of other stuff that comes with it, and reduced maintenance, and obviously this GPS things. That's one less thing you're going to have. So you don't have to buy like a GPS watch. You don't have to buy a Lit Pro. It's all already on the phone there. So that's really cool. All right, you're going to be able to ride longer. Now, battery life on these bikes is obviously the big talking point, and the original batteries were a 6.5 kilowatt on the original Varg MX. Now, the Varg 1.2, it's up to a 7.2 kilowatt battery, which is the same size in kilowatts as what they announced with the Varg EX, the enduro bike that they announced earlier in the year. They still got that patented magnesium honeycomb case. And the 1.2, it now offers a 20% more range than its predecessor. So plenty more time to be out on your bike. It's got 80 horsepower, 93 Newton meters at the rear wheel, and it's still just weighing 118 kilograms. So it's unmatched performance for longer is basically what it is now with that bigger battery, which is awesome. All right, it's also been proven by the pros. Obviously, you know that Sebastian Tortelli was their original test rider. Now, Sebastian Tortelli is a few-time world champion. He's won AMA races, supercrosses. He can ride a bike, that's for sure. Now, he's now their racing director and looking after their racing aspirations that are continuing to grow there with Stark Future. They've obviously been involved in some AMA Arena Cross things in recent times. They were UK Arena Cross. They did some in Super Enduros. So, yeah, they've done a bunch of different things, and they're growing further and further, and hopefully there'll be more things that they're available to race here shortly. But yeah, so Seb Tortelli's been on it. Obviously, he loves it. He's shown that there's changes to that 1.2, but they've also had Kevin Windham on it. Now, anyone who knows Kevin Windham's style, pretty smooth, pretty fast. He can ride pretty much anything, and without any gear on too, by the way, in case you've seen him on his socials there. He pretty much gets around, and he's ridden it, and he loves it. I've ridden everything there is to ride, and this is the future. Wyndham praised the bike's instant power, natural balance, and how quickly it felt familiar, even after decades on a gas machine. It's responsive, it's predictable, and you can focus on riding instead of managing the machine. I can see this becoming the new normal sooner than people think. Those are Kevin Windham's words. So that's pretty impressive. He's obviously had a go on it and enjoyed it immensely. Now, talking about innovation, they're supported by... they're getting feedback from this bike based on that Arkenstone phone. Their ability to get feedback on this is immense. It's getting feedback from over 50 countries. They've got dealer-supported testing and race program in 18 countries, paired with live input from Stark's connected rider ecosystem. And every detail of the 1.2 has been shaped by riders, from firmware, logistics, and suspension feel to mechanical function and durability. So what's new on the Varg MX 1.2? These are some dot points that they've listed out. They've got an updated powertrain for improved efficiency. They've got that new battery pack we just mentioned. It's 7.2 kilowatts. They've got a new frame. It's lighter, and it's even stronger steel alloy with twice the strength of the chrome moly steel used by other European manufacturers, and increased flex. And they changed some of that flex up around the head stock area. So be interested to see how that feels when we get a chance to have a go at this in time. They've overmolded wiring harness for extreme conditions. So basically, this wiring harness, I don't know if you've seen any of these videos, but you can ride one of these things. It's all waterproof. You can ride one through a puddle underwater and continue on. Try that on your gas bike. They've got, now this is new, and I sort of took a double take when Ben told me this one on the meeting, but they've got an internally routed map switch cable for cleaner and more protected, cabling on the handlebars. So basically the wiring for your map switch, your start, stops, all that sort of stuff is inside the handlebar. Yep, you heard right. It's inside the handlebar. So that's a new feature for this 1.2. Very interesting. Now, they did mention that if you wanted to change the bars because you didn't like the bar bend, that's all possible. The wiring will come out, and you'll be able to run it like a traditionally out on the edge with, some cable ties and whatnot. But if you like that handlebar, it's all routed within it. So it's just cleaning up the look there as well, and also reducing the chance of hooking that cable and ripping it off and creating a DNF situation. All right, what else? Reinforced dual compound skid plates that's fully biodegradable. Redesigned chain guide with 266% more lateral stiffness and a minimal 7% weight gain. So they've made that a bit stiffer. Obviously, they're having some issues with that chain guide, but they've made it some improvements. Like we talked about, that lap mode, so they can change that over on the Arkenstone phone. They've got new improved inner tubes with significantly improved durability. Now, if anyone saw the videos that some guys put up when they'd purchased their bikes and they were changing the tyres on the Starks originally, they had some funky looking inner tubes that were like a pinky red with some foil on them. They're a very different type of tube, but they've updated that again. So I'm curious to see what that looks like as well. The new Stark Arkenstone phone and docking station with better connectivity, speed, brightness, and clamping systems. So they've improved the phone. New gearbox, lighter and higher efficiency. So there's the few points that they've written down there. Now, obviously, the frame itself, the change they made, it's nearly a kilogram lighter than the previous model. It's still got KYB suspension front and rear. They've updated the mid-valve shim. They've got 310 mil of travel, and you can, like I said, you can select spring rates on this bike as well from the purchase point. So you can tailor that bike to you directly from the beginning there. One less cost you've got to do when you get that bike home. And speaking of that customization, you can choose between Dunlop MX34 or Pirelli MX32 tires, and with tubes or mousses, you can have that as a standard fitting when you pick it up. You've got the option to pick a titanium hardware package that can reduce 900 grams on your bike. They've got Brembo braking systems, foot or handlebar operated rear brake still available. And they've got 3 grip seat options this time around. Now, past they only had the one. They've got their standard seat, but they've also got a grip and a super grip option that looks really advanced. And for those people who want to lose a bit of skin off their butt, the super grip looks like the one there, but they look like very grippy seats. Obviously, there's the less maintenance aspects with electric bikes. You don't have to do pistons, no clutches, no filters. Now, that saving over 100 hours of riding, that can save, and they've written this notes here in this release, it's up to $5,000 US compared to a traditional 450. So look, in 100 hours alone of riding, you're probably doing like 50 to 100 air filters. So think about the time and the cost in that. That's probably worth it for a lot of people. Now, in terms of the pricing, let's talk Australian pricing here. The standard 60 horsepower, it's going to be $18,990. The Alpha, which is the 80 horsepower, it's going to be $19,990. So basically 20 grand, you're going to get that 80 horsepower and you're going to be good to go. Now, they are available from starkfuture.com. Or head into your local Stark dealer, and you can find those local Stark dealers from that starkfuture.com website, and they'll basically give you the address, the details, so you can head in there and get in touch with them. So that is the specs details of this bike. Very interested to see it in the flesh, but for now you have to stick with the images that you'll see on all the articles. So head over to fullnoise.com.au, you'll see some of those images as well. We'll put some up on the socials as well, on AlwaysMoto social pages. But let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back in with our interview with the CEO and co-founder, Anton Wass.
What's up, guys? I'm Colin Park, and you're listening to the AlwaysMoto podcast.
All right, let's get into the big interview for this week's episode here on the AlwaysMoto podcast, brought to you by TechnicMotorsport.com. This guest is going to be up there with one of the big names of our show so far, and obviously in our sport and industry as well. He's a bit of an industry pioneer, many would say, and that's because he's the CEO and co-founder of Stark Future. But he also stars in and does his own stunt work for his YouTube hit as well, the Stark Files. It's Anton Wass. How are we doing, Anton?
Hey, David. Great to speak to you. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good to have you on, mate. And it's been a little while since I saw you in person. Obviously, the last time I was around with you guys was the Stark worldwide media launch back in Spain in 2022. It seems like a lifetime ago, but a lot has happened since then for you guys, mate. You're definitely living up to the hype that you were talking about when we were there at that stage, and obviously continuing to push boundaries of the industry with the sport and technology. And this Varg MX 1.2 that you've just announced, it's the next step in the development. You guys are pushing the boundaries, and you just must never sleep, mate, over there.
I think there's a lot of people here that doesn't sleep enough, unfortunately. But yeah, thank you.
Please go
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's very impressive what you guys have been able to achieve in such a short space of time. So you must be very proud of where things have gotten to, looking back at it.
Yeah, for sure. It's really a dream come true when you look back and thinking that, 5 years ago, we were just two people working from home, and now we're 400 people all over the world developing, the vehicles we always dreamed of. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're saying it all over the world. Like I've just done some research before we hit this. This is check up on some of the latest numbers for you guys. But I think I got this right. Over 500 dealers worldwide now, and over 31 of those are Australia alone. Which that seems like a lot just from an Australian side of things for a brand new, tech challenging, mind challenging motorcycle. Like that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what you compare with. Like, I think it's important to not be overpopulated so that every dealer has enough territory to, grow a substantial market and do a really good job there. But if you compare to, the other big brands like Honda, Yamaha, KTM, and so on, we have significantly less dealers. I think, probably there's still some potential to grow that a little bit, but, trying to find the right balance so we give consumers the best service so they don't have to drive forever to find their dealer, but also make sure that each dealer has the right territory as well.
It's kind of hard to compare yourself to like a Honda or a Yamaha, particularly when they've been around for what they're like, probably pushing towards 100 years in some cases for some aspects of their business. And you guys have been here 5, 6. Like you can't go, oh, they've got more shops than us. That's the problem. We need to catch up. Like time frame's got to be scaled there as well, mate.
I don't know, does that 100 years really make such a big difference? It gives you a lot of legacy, of course, and a lot of history. That's really cool. But our ambition is to be the greatest at what we do. So we need to compare ourselves to whoever is the best today.
Well,
and that's our ambition. We want to be the best. So.
Yeah, definitely. Why not? Why be in anything if you don't want to be the best at something? That's got to be part of this, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
for sure. I mean, it's not fun aiming lower than number one. I don't think so.
No, nobody wants to be number two. But like talking about comparing yourself, and if you talk in that electric vehicle area, that EV side of things, I saw something earlier this year that you guys popped out about having your first profitable quarter for the business and happening obviously within that sort of 5-6 year mark. And you're comparing yourself to Tesla, and that took 14 years for them to do the same feat. Like, that's pretty astonishing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's super important for any business to be profitable, because if you're not, you're, simply dying a little bit every day. And that's not our ambition. We want to stay alive forever. So it's a super important milestone to make sure that we can continue innovating in this industry. And as of April this year, we are now profitable. So that's really an amazing milestone, I think. And yeah, I mean, we do compare ourselves to both motorcycle companies, but also electric vehicle companies. And, here Tesla, of course, is a company that everyone is familiar with. And it's pretty cool that we are, not only growing faster, but, we also managed to become profitable way faster than they did. Of course, it's different, with a car versus a motorcycle, but, still it's innovating and in the vehicle space with an electric vehicle. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Did you, I gather you probably got Elon on text message or something. Did you send him a message and say, I beat you as such or not? No?
I don't have his number yet, no.
Damn.
I think he's a pretty busy guy.
Yeah, maybe he is a little bit with all his SpaceX stuff and whatnot too. But yeah, no, I just thought that might have been a nice little point to rub in his face at some point. But yeah, maybe when you meet him next time. So
sure.
No, definitely.
Sure.
Now look, let's get to the big news of the moment for you guys, that Varg 1.2, the motocross, the second edition. I see, is this starting to become, now this obviously being the second one out, is this going to become like a regular recurring time interval for new models for Varg MXs and sort of fall into that vein like the other manufacturers do, where they do like an annual, release, or is this just purely, this was when you were ready to do this one?
Yeah, like we developed the Varg MX 1.0 4 years ago. So, a lot of time has passed, and we're quite focused on trying to improve the product. And, we have been measuring some of the improvements now. Over the time, we have done hundreds of small, minor improvements to make the product better. But, now we had so many significant improvements happening at the same time. So we think it makes sense to make it a new model.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason that we launched it now. We are not focused on a calendar, like we need to launch a new vehicle once a year or something like that. I don't think that's really relevant. We will do that when we bring out, such a big change that it really, it's a new product. And then, some smaller improvements, we will release them as soon as they happen. So that has also been the case previously. But now, we're looking at quite significant changes. So a lot more range, completely new, a new frame. It's still the same frame concept, but the whole frame is new, even though it's the same construction with new flex that works better, new suspension, and a bunch of other improvements. So I think it's that should be a new model. Otherwise, it will just be confusing when there's such a long list of improvements, basically from things that we have learned over the last 4 years.
Yeah, I gather for you guys, obviously with the electronic base of this and the Arkenstone phone and stuff, you guys can pop out little updates all the time. So your 1.0, your 1.01, your 1.01115, whatever. Yeah, you can put out hundreds of thousands of probably little updates. But yeah, the hardware side is what you've updated this time, hence 1.2, naming convention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So is that naming convention too, like being 1.2, is this a sign of like things to come when you call it maybe a 1.3 or you go to a 2.0, that that's the full new model and that's how we're going to be able to tell things are changing for the particular, Varg MX?
So number one, the reason we're not using years is that because we're not tying it to years, So there's not the 2024 model and 2025. We don't work like that. It's more like you can compare it to maybe the iPhone. You have an iPhone 1, 2, 3,
yep.
so on. And the reason that we did now 1.2 is that it is not a completely new model. It's a significant improvement. So So then, therefore, we name it 1.2. If we bring out a bike that is, completely new, then that would be a 2, a Varg 2, basically,
Yeah,
or a
yeah,
Varg 3, at some point.
yeah.
So
So
that's our reasoning behind this.
yeah, definitely. I was wondering if that was sort of the case. Like you definitely confirmed my thoughts on that side of things with the naming convention. But yeah, look, it's awesome that it's out. You touched on the frame there as well. You've made some significant weight changes to that as well. You've dropped nearly 1 kilo out of it. So there's a lot of ongoing development happening, even just on that side of things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so over these 4 years, we have done so much testing, so much racing that, we constantly test different improvements. And, the flex of the chassis is, huge part of that, of course. And we learned that a little bit more flex in the rear part of the chassis has a significant improvement in comfort and control. So we decided to bring that in now. And I think people will like it.
You guys are getting a fair range of riders on it now too as well. Like obviously when Ben was doing some of this introduction, he mentioned that Carson Brown had been on it. There's obviously in the press release as well, there's some quotes from Kevin Windham. Obviously Sebastian Tortelli's been with you guys pretty much from the start on this side of things, but you've had your racing guys in the Super Enduro, the UK Arena Cross. So you're getting probably a stack load more feedback into this than you probably had at the beginning of this as well, I should imagine, by quite a significant amount.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a huge difference. And I mean, now we have thousands of hours ridden every single week on the bike. And, you can't compare that to when you're in a developing and testing phase with, let's say you have 10 testing bikes running full time. If you compare that to thousands, you will learn a lot more when you have thousands.
Do you guys, obviously with the connectivity through like the Arkenstone phone, do you have like some sort of opt-in option, I assume you do, that then allows the user to then provide you even more feedback? So are you like having this ever-growing, loop of data coming into you from all the bikes around the world potentially?
Yeah, so I mean, we are getting data on all the bikes. We can see what is actually happening, which is really important for us to understand, for who are we really developing the product, because we can understand that 100%. We don't get, let's say, personalized feedback in terms of like written messages or so on from all of our customers today. It's more, what we understand when we speak to people, what we read in forums, what we see on review videos, emails that we get, and so on. I do think that's probably an interesting route in the future to have maybe like, super users or something like that would be allowed to test some features, before it's released, or provide feedback and something like that. We do use the racing teams around the world for this today, and like you said, that's a lot of people. But I think it would be super interesting to expand that in some regard to also the customers.
Yeah, I feel like you've got this ability through the phone and that connectivity to obviously have people opting in, and then you'd be able to tell that like they used it for, an hour on Monday, half an hour on Wednesday. They only hit 50% throttle. They had it set in, 50 horsepower mode, with this map or this regen and whatnot. And you can then see obviously the durability, the performance, etc. I feel like that's just some sort of, there's a data source there that you guys are going to be able to develop this and progress this beyond anything that we've probably had in motorcycling before because of that electronic connection.
That's completely true. And this is really interesting because, one is that we see kind of like the big data. So we see where is the volume of customers and how are they using the bike. And that's, of course, super important to understand. But it's also, sometimes it can be a bit of an eye-opener when you get some of the fastest riders in the world on a bike, and just to realize how hard they can actually ride a bike can be surprising, I would say.
Some of them are quite brutal
as well. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. No, I think that's a huge part of the learning, and I think the Arkenstone is a major step ahead in terms of the ability to adjust the bike for you. So I think that the previous phone that we have had as a display, we're not completely happy with the connectivity that we've had. There has been too many stability issues, and that's why we decided to develop a completely new Stark phone from the ground up, where we've now integrated those electronics better into the bike, so we get a stronger connection and more of a seamless experience, so that you never have to touch it if you don't want to. It's just a display, but then you can unclick it and use it to do lap times or navigate a trail or change your power settings or whatever you want to do. So I think that's going to be a nice improvement. And I think the laps feature is pretty cool, actually, that we also released that now for all the Varg EX customers. Was released yesterday, so they will have that as well. And it will eventually be made available for all the older Varg MX customers as well. We're doing a significant update to that app too, but it's just a little bit better in the Arkenstone in the end. And it's going to be cool to see how much people really use the laps feature. I'm not so much for race times myself, but I think a lot of people are, so it's going to be cool to realize that.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that one, because when I read that and got told about that one, my ears sort of perked up, because I'm obviously in the fitness background and training and stuff, and when I do use my own track and it's in the backyard, I know how long it takes me to do a lap as such, and I've got like the GPS set up on the Polar watch so that I can get the lap time and see it and compare it. But then the ability that you guys had with this new just GPS connection that you've got in the phone is, have the segments and stuff, and my ears perked up. I'm like, oh geez, I'm data overloading at this point, but I know what I could do with it, and it's super cool. And I think you're going to find a lot of people that do regular rides on a same sort of set thing. It's almost like you're going on your mountain bike loop and you know that it's 10 Ks and you want to do it in under an hour or in under 40, whatever speed you do. These people are going to start turning it. You're going to turn a whole bunch of people into really competitive nuts because they've got it on their dashboard.
Yeah. No. Now every time you finish a lap, it tells you exactly how much faster or slower you finish a lap. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really good. And obviously, like you said, you're sending these things to the other models as well as updates. So your customers that are existing, you're still looking after them with these continuous updates. I gather at some point that would stop for those earlier models, but for the time being, they're all getting the benefit of the things that you're developing along the way too.
Yeah. I think as long as we can, we will keep that running. And I think it is pretty cool. You can buy a product and it just becomes better over time. That's not so common, and I think that's really a nice thing. So we will keep it running for as long as we can, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Now,
but then when it comes to hardware changes, that's kind of where the limit is, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah, in Moto, we know how hardware works. If you crash it, you replace it. Other than that, you're stuck with it for pretty much as long as it runs for. So
for sure.
The software side of things is obviously new in the Moto to get those updates like you would on your phone. It's very cool to have these things progressing and giving you more features along the way. So it's an awesome thing that Stark is doing. But I gather you've spent a bit of time on this 1.2 as well in your personal riding time. You obviously probably would have access to it. What are your thoughts on the model?
I think a big feature is, of course, the increased range. That's something that a lot of people have been asking for. So that's super nice, of course. And then I really like the new software functions. So that's pretty cool. And then the chassis, I was a little bit surprised that, an amateur rider like me could actually feel the difference when I was comparing the two bikes. Okay. That, it feels more in control. Maybe that's the way to put it. So that's quite nice. So it's obviously still the same bike. Well, something else that I think makes a big difference is the suspension. That's huge improvement for sure. So
yeah, you've made some mid-valve changes to that. So yeah, obviously things are just progressing along with the feel, and obviously the chassis changes and the battery size changes would have directed some of those suspension tweaks as well to make it feel right for those other changes that came along with the bike.
Yeah, sure.
Now, you mentioned on it the battery size there, the increased range. You guys went from that 6.5 up to a 7.2 for this new one, which is in line with what you did for the EX, the off-road version of this. How about the recharge side of things? How's that going along? Because that's obviously a thing that pops up a lot when we talk about electric vehicles is, the range. But obviously then once you run out of that range, how long does it take to get going again? Is it getting better with each of these models that you're bringing out, or are we sort of still at that same sort of point from what the EX was, which I think was a 2 hour or just under that recharge?
Yeah, so it's still 2 hours. I think the future is going to be really, really fast charging, but that's more of a significant change in building the vehicle to achieve that. But something that is interesting is that we will bring out a 1 hour charger for the bike, and this will come out in the next few months. But so the bike can actually take faster charge than it does today.
Yeah.
But for now, with the standard charger, it's 2 hours.
Yeah, no, look, it's one of those things that comes along with this at the stage. But you mentioned there about the faster charger. So are you guys actually specifically as Stark working on that technology yourselves to try and increase this recharge aspect, or is this something that you're relying on bigger tech giants to sort of help bring you along to?
No, we are for sure part of we're developing that. So in the charger space, I think there's a lot of innovation to be done. So we have some interesting projects that we're working on there that we will bring out in the future.
Yeah, nice. You guys obviously hold a lot of patents and stuff for the work that you've done already. I wasn't sure if that was one of the things you're chasing specifically, or if you obviously have to outsource some things. But yeah, no, it's awesome to hear that you're working on more than just bike progress here. It's tech stuff as well.
I mean, we like to make our lives a little bit complicated, unfortunately. So if we see an area of improvement, we normally go for it. And I think that's going to bring out a lot of. It has brought out, and it will continue to bring out a lot of nice functions. But it also makes the challenges internally just ever keep on growing. But yeah, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, it's one of those things. If you're ambitious in life, you see a hole, let's say, in the area of progression, and you're like, I can feel that. Let's do that too. So yeah, I can see how that just would come along naturally for you guys.
Yeah, every time.
Now, obviously, this new model is still going to be a 60 and an 80 horsepower offering, has two versions essentially that the consumer can buy. Is there a point where you stop doing that and you just go, it's an 80 horsepower and the the adjustability that the dashboard and that Arkenstone phone allows, you can just change that yourself? Is there anything like that in the future for you guys? Do you see that happening, or do you just those two offerings going to stay sort of as a set models as such?
No, so we are gonna keep the models as it is now in terms of powers. I mean, obviously for most riders, 60 horsepower is enough. So why is there 80 horsepower? I mean, it's for the thrill. Like I don't need 80 horsepower, but every time I try it, my God, that adrenaline rush is incredible. So if I'm gonna try to do fast laps, no, there's no way I can ride with 80 horsepower. I mean, maybe 10 people in the world can, but it's pretty cool to have that power available, and we want to give people the option for those that want to have it. And it's if you really want an adrenaline rush, that's where you should go.
And that response right there is exactly why you're the man at the top, but also you're the man that stars and does your own stunts in some of those Stark File YouTube videos I've been watching recently. You're still getting out and doing all this riding yourself, which is, very cool that the boss is the man out testing some of this stuff too, and putting himself on the bike and in some of those situations, like trying to jump up that wall that you were doing in one of the, I think it was most recent episodes. But yeah, you're out there on the bike doing this yourself, mate.
I shouldn't take too much credibility. We have people that are testing full time and are much better than me at it. So they're doing it full time, but in my case, I enjoy riding, so that's why I do it. And I think it's still super important that when we lead the company, if we don't fully understand the product, we're not going to make the best decisions. So of course we rely on experts and listen to what they tell us, because they can understand the bikes better. But to be a rider yourself, it's a huge difference, and I think that's an advantage that a lot of us at in the leadership level, we ride bikes every single week. So that's pretty cool. Yeah,
it's nice that you sort of seem to still have that that flexibility and time. Obviously, you've got the access to it, but sometimes you can run out of time and other constraints, or the don't get hurt situations can come out. There's important meeting or whatever. But yeah, the fact that you guys still get out and about and do it, and you're there firsthand is what makes this company, so impressive at times, because you do have, like you said, that your finger on the pulse is what we're looking for there. It's happening all the time. So yeah, no, it's a credit. And obviously across the industry, the people that are still riding and racing, I feel, make some of the best parts, the best commentary, the best, everything, because they are first-hand users, and they did it like the previous weekend, and that's why they understand what happened on it.
No, I totally agree.
Now, on the bike, obviously we're talking about adjustability with the phone, and you can change the power curves and regen and how much engine braking the bike has and stuff. But the ability to customize the bike, not just at that once you've got it, but even before the purchase, is something that you guys have done from the very beginning, and you're continuing to do, and even potentially adding more parts of this along the way, because you've got your suspension choices in terms of spring rates, softs, mediums, hards. You can change tires, obviously in this one for this 1.2, you've got a Dunlop version available, you've got a Pirelli version available, you could have tubes or mousses, you've also got your protection and stuff out there. That is a nice customizing piece for the purchasers. Is that something that you guys are seeing a lot of uptake from your buyers and tweaks being made, or are they still just going standard sort of thing?
So to start it, why did we do this? And I think it starts from realizing that most people that buy a new motocross bike today, the first thing they do is to rebuild it before they even ride it. And I just think that's a bit strange. If you buy a new product, why can't it be delivered the way you want it? And of course, some people might enjoy rebuilding them, and I do as well when I have the time. But when you buy a completely new motorcycle, I think it should be delivered as you want it, if that's what you're looking for. And there are different preferences. Like some people want tubes, some want a mousse, because they just want to make sure that they can never get a puncture, or they prefer that type of grip. People have different tire preferences, and then we have really cool stuff like I would when I buy the bike, I choose to have the titanium shafts and bolts, because okay, it's saving me 900 grams. I don't know if I can really feel that. It feels good though.
Yeah.
So no, I think I think a lot of people are choosing these options, and I think it's appreciated. It's a lot of extra work, obviously, for us to have a line that's not just spitting out the same product time after time, but actually adapting each bike for each order. But we want to put the customer first, so that's an easy choice.
Is there going to be any expansion of that? Like, are you guys looking to add, or actively looking to add things like, different grips or different handlebars or anything else, to make this line further? And even on the handlebars, then I just realized too, that integrated internal cabling that you've got in this new model as well, that's something different as well. So that makes things a little bit more difficult for that customizing there, I guess. But yeah, like, is there more products potentially going to be added to that option, or have you you're comfortable with where it's at the moment?
Yeah, so first, just to touch on the map switch, we routed now the cable inside the handlebar, because it happens now and then that the cable gets stuck on branches, or it gets hit by roost or something like that, and that can stop your ride, which of course we want to avoid. But it's a really clean look. The electric cable doesn't really look good, so now you can't see it, and it's just makes the cockpit a little bit more clean.
Yeah. And
in terms of adding more options, I think, we will continue doing that. What we really want to stick to is that we only add things that add a real value. We don't want to add just a bunch of anodized options and charge more for it to gain margin. We want every option to really have a meaningful function. Kind of stay true to that. That's our ambition. But I think more will come.
Yeah, nice. I was wondering if you maybe other brands had seen what you're doing and they banging down your door wanting to be a part of it or not, because that would be something I would assume a few people have tried to approach you about at some point.
Yeah, a few have. Yeah, there's no obviously there are brands like the tires and so on that it's not developed by us, but we're open to it. Nothing that has been proposed yet is really something that we think would be the right fit. I mean, for instance, like titanium shafts, we want to develop those in-house because they have to be simulated and tested like an OEM part, which is not the case for aftermarket. So I think, there we would take things further. There are obviously other things which could make sense, but in a lot of those cases, we try to look at it and see, but could we do something better? And if we can, then we prefer to do something better. And but if not, that could for sure be an option. I can't see anything happening anytime short, but we would be open to it.
Yeah, obviously you want that control in the parts, and like you mentioned about that testing and knowing that it's durable and safe, and providing something that's quality for the consumer, so your brand isn't being tarnished by some other part. But touching into those aftermarket parts, and obviously once the bike ends up out in the wild, other brands and stuff can buy one and then try and put parts on it and then make them consumably available. I've noticed recently when I was doing some research for this interview that there's a couple of companies doing like e-clutches that you can buy kits for them and put them on. I don't know whether that's something that you've seen. I assume you have. You probably grabbed some and seen how they're working. But is that something that you're worried about? You're happy about? How do you see those things going? Because obviously that's starting to, particularly an e-clutch, that's getting into your wiring side of things and potentially changing how that's functioning.
Yeah. Yes. I just realized I never really touched upon your comment regarding the handlebars earlier as well, which is. With our map switch, you can still route the cable externally, and you can use any handlebar on the market. So you're not limited there. If you want to have a rental twin wall or something, you can still use that. That's not an issue. But in terms of the e-clutches, we have seen a few coming out, and one thing is, I would, first of all, I question, is it really, valuable? Because we've been riding these bikes for some time. We have Eddie Carlson that is competing in the Super Enduro World Championship and racing also hard enduro at the highest level. He won the silver class at Romaniacs here a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So why do we need a clutch? First of all, like, is there really a benefit there? Which I personally don't think. I think it's a much bigger benefit to have a rear handbrake, which gives you a lot more control than a foot brake. But then the next aspect is, and we're not against companies doing aftermarket parts for us. I think in general that's a good thing. But tapping into the electronics, and I think here they're tapping in between the throttle signals. This can be dangerous. So the system is tested as a whole and validated as a whole. So as soon as you interrupt with that, if you add something like this, you don't know what can happen. So it's a risk. Can damage the bike for sure. Can maybe do something unexpected while you're riding. Can also be dangerous. So we don't recommend it. And if you do install something that tampers with your electronics, that will void your warranty because it's not tested as a system. We have no idea what will happen. So of course, if people want to do it, that's up to them. But we don't recommend people to do so. If we thought a clutch would be beneficial, we would develop one, but we don't see that today. We rather see that we can probably continue improving how throttle and brake works to give you even more control. But it's already good enough to win at the highest level in the world. And I honestly think the clutch is a crouch. For most people, they will become a much better rider when they remove the clutch and the gearbox from the equation. And I mean that's what we see with the Varg. I mean you see it in particular with really technical enduro riding, because there you really have crystal clear, like, this guy couldn't get up this hill before. Now he gets up. It's like, okay, there's no doubt it's better for him. And in motocross, we clearly see that more or less everyone have faster lap times. So of course, so tampering with the electronics is something that we're strongly against because it's simply dangerous. So
yeah, it doesn't seem like, from my side
but-
of things, when I was looking at it, one, that the kits that they were advertising looked ridiculously pricey for what they were, and then I'm like, I don't know if I want somebody that's just, I don't know who it is, and no association to Stark as such, putting a wiring into something else that, potentially there's my warranty gone, and I don't know how it's going to work and all this sort of stuff. It obviously, once they get out in the wild, anybody can make anything for anything and claim that it's great. But like you touched on, if you thought it was beneficial, you would have it available already on your bike. So, yeah, I think that sort of is the key message there on that. But I just found it interesting that there was obviously things starting to pop up. It's been out for a while now that obviously people have had time to look at it, develop things, and try to, put them out to market themselves. But yeah, your bikes are already so good in exactly what you said, the technical side of it. If you spend a bit of time on the bike, the ease of use, for the fact you're not changing gears, you're not going for the clutch, you're no longer essentially tap dancing on the fit peg. You're just able to stand there and balance and put your weight in the right areas and just ride the bike and just enjoy the experience.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really interesting because the rear handbrake is, really a game changer. And when we started selling the bikes in 2021, we had about 50-50 of customers using a foot or a handbrake. But now it's 90% handbrake. So it's really interesting how quickly the market has, let's say, seen the benefits of the handbrake. So I would strongly recommend the remaining 10% to consider the rear handbrake as well. Yeah, you're gonna enjoy your riding more. I promise you.
Yeah, definitely. The bikes are just fantastic as they are, and obviously those aspects make it easier to ride, and just simpler to enjoy the moments out on the bike. But when we talk these bikes as well, and obviously when we put things out on social media and, any of these new releases, you get a lot of comments about, a lot of silly stuff. But there is sort of two things that usually always pop up, and that's usually the price of the bikes and the range and the charging aspects that go along with the range of the bikes. Now, we touched on the range and stuff before, but I'll just mention this too because I wrote it in my notes as part of my question. But basically, I think the range question is a bit of a silly one because most people out there can't ride a full tank of gas on a 450 anyway. So complaining about a range on an electric bike, a little bit silly in my point. If the range was 10 minutes, yeah, sure, but it's not. So that part I don't see as an issue. But the price side of things, yes. And if we talk the Australian prices now for the 1.2 over here and the 80 horsepower, it's just shy of $20,000, which is a little bit more than other gas-powered 450s in that same brand new model ranges. But you brought up a good point in the press releases about this, about the saving over 100 hours of use is about $5,000 US, because you're not changing things like pistons and air filters and oil changes and stuff like that. So it sort of comes out in the wash, if that makes sense. But lots of people still don't see that aspect of the bike and how the bike, how the bike is priced over time.
Yeah, and I think we are a little bit more expensive today, but that's just an initial purchase. If you look at 100 hours, I think we are in many countries we are the cheapest bike, and in some countries we're maybe on par with what gas 450 would be. And I think people are intelligent. They will see this and to do the math, and the calculation is based upon which parts are recommended to be changed at which hours according to the other OEMs handbooks. So I think it's really like a very reasonable comparison. And it's one is the cost, obviously. This is just the cost of the parts, so that's assuming that you change them yourself, which if you do, that's also a lot of your time, which you might value your time more than that. And if you don't do it yourself, the cost difference is obviously significantly more than the $5,000 US. interesting comparison from that aspect.
Yeah, look, one, I reckon just the fact that I don't have to change and squeeze the oil in and out of an air filter is value in itself. When you can work out how to have the tires changed as well by themselves, let me know, because that part would be sick to have not have to do that part as well.
I agree with you. We need to solve that problem. I fully agree with you. That's a tricky one.
Yeah, my wife always says a few tire irons fly across the shed every once in a while when I'm changing a tire. And yeah, look, that one, obviously that one's probably not possible, but the other aspects, the piston changes, the oil changes, and the air filter particularly, that stuff is great that you're not having to do. So yeah, look, that maintenance side of things for many people is a massive selling point, obviously. If we talk about the prices overall and stuff, do you see any of that stuff changing? Obviously with tech, there's always that discussion that, the battery prices will come down in time because, that's just naturally how things will progress. I don't know if that's so much true because I can't really say that I've, physically seen that myself, but do you see any of this stuff changing overall price for you, or is it going to be much the same and slowly, just as per everything seems to these days, just slowly creep up over the years?
I would be surprised if the prices will go down. I wouldn't expect that. Maybe they will kind of more stay flat for a longer period of time, that it wouldn't increase so much.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously this depends on many factors in the world, but I don't see price decline in the coming years. Yeah. I think it's important to stay competitive, but also our ambition is not to make the cheapest bike. Our ambition is to make the best bike. So if we can see that spending a little bit more, we can make a significantly better product, we will do that as well. So I'm sure there will be cheaper options, but we want to be the best option.
Yeah, and that goes back to that bit we said at the start about being number one. So yeah, you don't cut corners. You're not saving costs here and there just for the overall price. You're making the bike the best it can be, and for the experience of riding that bike. So yeah, no, look, I just thought it's just one of those things. Yeah, I always hear, and the reason I brought it up was because when I bought my property way back when, we put off-grid solar on it because I had no connection to the local council's grid, and it was a ridiculous amount of money to bring the power to the property. So we put it in, and the guy's like, "Oh, the batteries are going to be for the backup for the solar is." I can't remember exactly the price, but let's say it was 50 grand. He goes, "Oh, but don't worry, in 10 years when you have to replace them, they'll be cheaper." And I'm like, I don't think that's right, but that's what everybody tells you along these lines with some of this sort of battery technology. And I'm like, I feel like we're just at a point where it's just going to be the same, if not a little bit more, just because that's how everything in life seems to just slowly creep along in price.
Yeah, I would expect so as well. I mean, we have seen, specifically battery prices going down in the last few years. So, maybe for if you buy only like a battery, for your house or something like that could, I think that has the potential to go down in price. But yeah, I mean, let's see. Normally that's not what happens, but
yeah,
those prices are moving in that direction though. That's clear.
Okay, so let's, obviously the bike's releasing, the 1.2 is releasing pretty much now. It's available for from pretty much today, which is a little bit of a change for you guys, but obviously for Australian side of things, Ben mentioned it's sort of 2 or 3 weeks away, but you'll be able to pre-order it, which that's awesome. You've got this coming out again. We're expecting to see big things from it as well, in terms of you're probably going to get it out and about in more events and more exposure on that side of things, which will be awesome. But what's next for Stark Future outside of the next model releases? I gather you probably have something similar come out for the EX, which is only really just out and about, so it's got time to develop and progress. But is there something else on the market, on the horizon for you guys that you're working on? And selfishly, if I go back to some emails that we exchanged a while back, is it kids bikes? I'm sick of working on kids bikes. Are we up to that stage yet with Stark Future?
Well, just quickly, I mean, for the launch this time, we decided to start production before we did the launch.
Yep.
So that's one of the feedbacks that we had from customers before, that they haven't appreciated waiting for the bikes. And we also had delays with both the first MX and the EX with the first deliveries. So that's now different. We have now produced, and to Australia we have shipped bikes since a while back that should arrive shortly. And in Europe, we have bikes in stock, and in US they are also just about to arrive. So, I hope people will appreciate the quicker delivery time this time. In terms of what's coming next, we are quite focused on one, just innovation within technology. So trying to take things much further in terms of powertrain, motors, inverters, batteries. Like how can we be best in the world? Like that's really our ambition, not in motorcycle industry, but all vehicles in terms of things like power density, energy density, charging time, and so on. So these are let's say technology projects that we are working on that will come in the future, in the coming years. And in terms of new categories, we are very focused on entering the street segments.
Oh, nice.
So that will come here in the next few years. And yes, we will have kids' bikes. They're not coming anytime soon, but when they do come, they will be spectacular. Like
of course they will be. Yeah. Oh, look, it'll probably
very far, but it's also take time. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'll probably end up getting to the point. I'm just being selfish here because the kids' bikes they're a bit of a pain in the ass to work on, and I dare say by the time you have them out and available, my kids will probably either stopped or outgrown that stuff, and they'll be on bikes that are not needing as much fiddling with to make them run every time you try and start them. So yeah, look, it's just a selfish view from me on that side of things. But interesting you mentioned that feedback from the consumers about having to wait for the bike. We're just in that instant gratification society at the moment, aren't we? Where if you click purchase, it all of a sudden pops up and it's available. So yeah, they obviously didn't appreciate having to wait for something for even a week, let alone I think you said probably a couple of months there at times for different things. So yeah, look, that's that's just the society we live in.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, we have to listen. If that's what people want, then we have to adapt. So we're doing our best to try to do that. Sorry to keep you waiting for the kids' bike.
That's all right, Anton. You can make it up to me in other ways.
Thank you.
Well, look, Anton, it's been a pleasure having you on. I appreciate the time. I think people will get a lot out of hearing, just directly from yourself and about the new model. I've done a big spiel about it before that will go into this whole podcast about the specs and stuff and how it's changing. So I hope they get a lot out of it. And yeah, look, just your availability and access to everybody is unmatched for a CEO in our business. So appreciate your time and thanks for being on the AlwaysMoto podcast.
Thank you, David. It was a pleasure to speak to you. Take care.
Hey guys, it's Luke Neese. I will be riding for Club MX Yamaha in the World Supercross Series, and you are listening to the AlwaysMoto podcast.
All right, guys and girls, thanks for sticking around on the AlwaysMoto podcast. There you have it. That was the man, Anton Wass, the CEO and co-founder of Stark Future, talking about the new Stark Varg 1.2, that new MX bike that's hitting the floor here pretty much now. So go and get yourself one. Anton's a cool guy. Very happy to talk with him, get some insight on some things that are happening there with Stark Future. Look forward to seeing whatever is next that they come out with as well. So look, awesome to have him on the AlwaysMoto podcast. So great show this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Bit different there with all the electric bike talk. Thanks for listening, guys and girls. Don't forget to send us those t-shirt orders to our email, info@alwaysmoto.com. Follow us on our social media pages to stay up to date with all things moto. Search AlwaysMoto and then follow and subscribe. Subscribe to the podcast feed if you haven't already. And if your podcast app allows, and Spotify does, leave us a rating. It means a lot, helps us out, helps popping us up in those search terms so we can get more and more listeners and we can continue to bring you more and more interesting content. Don't forget to check out our written articles over at fullnoise.com.au. But that's it for another show. Thanks to Technic Motorsport, Pivot Pegs, Competitive Edge Performance, and Tech 167 3D Printing for the show support. Thanks to the wife and kids for letting me get this done again, and we will see you at the track.